infrastructure track at TiEcon. My name is Rajiv Patel. I'm the content co-chair for this year's TiEcon. I'd like to thank all of you for attending today. TiEcon is a conference which is planned, operated, and run by a dedicated team of volunteers. And at this time, I would like to thank some of the volunteers and the advisory team members who have made this cloud infrastructure track a phenomenal success. They've worked for the last few months preparing this wonderful program for us all.
It's already a success.
Thank you. I would now like to call on stage Praveen Gupta, who's the co-chair for the cloud track, to start the session.
Welcome to the cloud infrastructure track. We are looking forward to a very exciting day today with a lot of exciting speakers. Just as a logistics check, so we have 2 keynotes, 7 panels, 2 fireside chats, 2 lightning rounds, and a primer. So the panels are about 30 minutes each, keynote is 30 minutes each, and the fireside chat and primer are 15 minutes each. Thank you. So I would like to now invite Sudhakar Ramakrishna, VP, SVP and GM for Enterprise and Service Provider Services with Citrix.
Thank you, Praveen, and good morning, everyone. I'm really looking forward to this session, and I was told that there's a number of panel discussions, fireside chats along this track. And being the first presenter, I'm called the setup man. So that's my job today. Just a couple of other quick notes. I was told that there's no timer here, so there's no countdown timer. So I'll try not to ramble too much and stay to the point. And at the same time, if you have any follow-on questions and things, we can discuss them after the session. So just this morning, completely coincidentally, I was reading an IDC report that said there's going to be upwards of $100 billion of investment in the cloud. And as is the case with most cloud-related things, it was unclear as to how that money was going to be spent, on what, why, and where, and so on and so forth. So I think that's part of the excitement around this industry, as well as the dynamism that exists in terms of entrepreneurs constantly looking at opportunities, segmenting, iterating, improving, and then obviously capturing the value and making it real. There's a couple of points that I wanted to highlight as it relates to the cloud itself. At Citrix, and me personally, we don't look at cloud as a thing. I mean, it's one thing to say it's cloud-related technologies, cloud deployments, and so on and so forth. But there is a lot of philosophical concepts within cloud that can be leveraged regardless of whether one is in the cloud business or not. And therein lies, I believe, the true lure of cloud, which is what's attracting us all to a session like this. First, I wanted to share a few words about Citrix itself. I'm proud to be at Citrix, as there are many Citrites, as we like to call them here. Citrix is a company that has constantly reinvented itself. So a lot of us entrepreneurs in the audience can relate to Citrix because we started with one industry and we continue to evolve. And what we've been able to do over the years is not only capture a significant market share in multiple segments, but actually have delivered a lot of customer value. That's really what we are all about. And that's largely driven by our people and our partners. So through a combination of all of our efforts, we have established number 1 or number 2 leadership position in multiple segments. As you can see here, cloud is one such segment that we are key players in, and I'll go into a little bit more detail as to what that means. But I'm trying to keep the discussion not so much about Citrix, but about cloud at large, such that I can be the setup man for the rest of the panel discussions and the fireside chats later on today. There's one key aspect here that I have not mentioned, which is the whole notion of enterprise mobility. People talk a lot about enterprise mobility, and we are establishing a very clear leadership position in that as well. And mobile and cloud continue to become 2 increasingly dominant forces to help people perform their duties regardless of their locations, regardless of the devices, and regardless of the delivery mechanisms themselves. But despite all the market success, business success, and so on and so forth, there's one thing that sets Citrix apart. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up here is this is the key reason I joined Citrix personally. It is about having a great culture and having fantastic empathy for your constituents. And those constituents can be your customers or your employees or anybody associated. So unlike some other companies that may have, call it more mundane parameters of success, for us it's about culture and empathy. And the reason I bring this up in an entrepreneurship conference, largely speaking, is there are many of you here that either are running incredibly successful businesses, planning to start companies, or kind of trying to achieve escape velocity, so to speak, or taking off the ground. And I'm sure a lot of you, in addition to technology problems and so on and so forth, are looking at how can I make a difference? How can we make a difference? And one area that Citrix has been tremendously successful in is to help establish a culture of respect, culture of humility. And we compete incredibly hard on one hand. We reinvent ourselves all the time, but it's based and grounded on humility. Now, coming to the world of apps and data and people and tasks, at the broadest level, Citrix is about taking applications and services, regardless of where they are built, who builds them, aggregating them, and delivering them to users, regardless of their location or device. This is not a new version of our vision. This was something that was created 25 years ago. 25 years ago, we used remote access technologies. Today, we use cloud and mobile and smartphones and tablets and so on and so forth. This is where the evolution of Citrix has happened over the years. And what this mode of productivity has established is the notion of cloud first and mobile first. I'm sure you're going to hear from companies that talk about the cloud era and the mobile era and so on and so forth. What I just want to highlight is these are not new concepts. These are not new things. I mean, many of you have actually been doing it. In fact, just as I was introducing myself to several of you, you were talking about the companies that you're associated with. Everybody starts with a cloud this or a mobile that, and so on and so forth. So the cloud and mobile era is not something that we are focused on as much as focusing extremely on experiences. The cloud-first notion and the mobile-first notion ensures that customers or users are able to experience their workplace, their personal lives, or whatever the case might be in the best possible manner. And so our focus on being able to deliver experience is grounded on using cloud and mobile as technologies, as philosophies or approaches, and as vision. To be able to do this, and the reason why I'm drilling down a little into this is, as many of the entrepreneurs here and would-be entrepreneurs are thinking about what are the ways to differentiate, what are the ways to create value proposition, how do I build empathy, and so on and so forth. There's basically three key things one needs to focus on in terms of taking apps and services that are made and built anywhere to be able to deliver to any device or any location such that people can work anywhere. And those three things are the ability to aggregate and broker. So take applications, regardless of Windows apps, mobile apps, SaaS applications, and be able to aggregate them. So it's fashionable in the industry, for instance, now to say, Windows apps are gone. It's all about mobile and SaaS. Okay? Let me give you some statistics. Today, within the enterprises, less than 6% of all enterprise apps are mobile apps. Less than 6%. Okay? So we did a forward projection up to 2016 and said, what will the world of applications look like? When I say world of applications, it's a combination of Windows apps, mobile apps, and SaaS applications. More than 50% of enterprise apps in 2016 are projected to be still Windows applications. Okay? But there's one important difference, though. Those applications need to be rendered on mobile devices such that they can be consumed effectively. Likewise, the number and percentage of mobile apps is exploding. Number and percentage of SaaS applications is exploding. This creates an interesting IT dilemma, right? Because on one hand, users with their BYO trends and demands are saying, I need everything consumed. I need everything consumed with a great experience. So IT has to focus on ensuring that they become a service agent. So I like to use this term of IT's role is becoming an enabler from being an enforcer. It wasn't long ago that IT told us exactly the type of laptop and peripherals we could use. That's not happening anymore. So they're now becoming more of an enabler, a service organization. So from an opportunity standpoint, there's tremendous opportunity in the aggregation and the brokering aspect of it. Two is, I call it app fluent delivery fabric. This call it the networking application systems, layer 4 through 7, load balancing, app orchestration, the whole security elements. Bottom line is, the fabric has to be app fluent. And then last but not least is providing containers and experiences to deliver these cloud-first applications, regardless of the type, to devices independent of their location or type. Those three things have to come together to essentially leverage cloud-first principles with mobile-first principles to deliver great experiences. And that's where Citrix comes into play. If you look at our focus, we don't care about the type of applications. We are able to aggregate them, broker them, deliver them with great app-fluent technologies, and leveraging cloud platform. We were pioneers in building the cloud platforms in the industry, which I'll go into in a few minutes. As you notice on the left-hand side, the device types are numerous and continue to grow. The point here is, if you think about the world in those terms, then you can start spotting white spaces. And I'll go into what those white spaces are in a few minutes as well. So we kind of spoke a little bit about what Citrix is about, I'm tying in the principles with what's happening in the world alongside Citrix. Now let's take a look at top IT priorities. This is another way to think about, as an entrepreneur, what are the various priorities in the IT segment. Okay, so I'm just listing that first, but if you take one click down, all of the things that we're talking about here, whether it's enterprise infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, mobile, and application monetization, are all top of mind aspects. These are where the opportunities lie for everybody here, and obviously the industry at large, which then contributes to the $100 billion or whatever the number happens to be in total spend, but all should be grounded on delivering true customer value. Now, but as we think about even clouds and virtualization, there's a lot of topics here. So data center virtualization obviously is a big market. But by our estimates, it's almost 100% fully penetrated market. Virtualization, what do we do next? That's one fact to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is, I like to say, IT wants to focus on the core and stay away from the chore, so to speak. Okay? Focus on the core and away from the chore. When we talk about workload migration into the cloud and such, cloud offers a fantastic opportunity to take certain workloads into and transition out of your data center such that you can take advantages of the benefits of what cloud delivers with what you want to focus on internally. And essentially, that leads to a hybrid world. There's no such thing as, in our view, from our perspective, just a private cloud or a public cloud or an only virtualization world. In fact, I've seen customers more recently saying, I don't even want to have virtualization in some cases. I want to have bare metal capabilities. Why? Because that drives a certain level of performance and cost characteristics, and they don't want to pay the virtualization tax. Okay? So these are vectors I'm giving you because as you think through your options and ideas, to keep in mind which vector makes the most sense to you from a capability set on one hand and a value delivery on the other hand. But the bottom line of all this is 60% of customers, roughly speaking, 58% to be specific, are going with a hybrid IT model, where they may have some virtualization infrastructure, they'll have private clouds. We believe there'll be thousands of private clouds, and I'll give you some examples of that. And then there's obviously large public clouds that need to be reconciled. So the important thing to think through as we go forward is we need to have leverage the power of what we call any. So it's not about one vendor building a vertically integrated cloud capability and forcing everybody to adopt it and adopt it only. There might be a few vendors that can do it, that have the capital benefits or the capabilities and the technology breadth to be able to do that. But for the most part, we need to think about hybrid cloud, not just premise and off-premise, but across clouds as well. That's a very important element of how to think through, like when we think about technology decisions, business decisions, and so on. Because there's a tremendous amount of arbitrage games being played in terms of where workloads get deployed today. People start off with one public cloud. Just for a few cents or a few dollars, they're moving workloads around. And technology needs to be able to enable that. So then, in terms of the drivers are many. For some, building infrastructure is their business. For some, it is about addressing business continuity and disaster recovery. So we all know Hurricane Sandy when it hit the US, the east coast of the US. Till Hurricane Sandy hit, most customers in the financial district in New York did not really have a huge interest or relevance for the cloud. Once it hit, the bit flipped. Bottom line is business continuity and disaster recovery became incredibly important things for them. So they said, I need the ability to deliver capabilities from the cloud, in addition to doing it from the premise. In addition, not as a replacement, in addition to doing from the premise. So that's like one set of use cases that's driving traction into the cloud. And as those customers are doing, more and more customers are coming into the cloud. The other thing that I'm increasingly noticing is as customers expand their market opportunity and their sites, they want incredibly rapid ways of bringing up their users. They don't want to wait 3-4 months to set up a data center, power it all up, and so on and so forth. So how can I leverage the cloud? Again, in addition to what is happening on premise. But now we are also seeing a new definition of DOS. We all know what DOS means, disk operating system. The new definition of DOS is don't own stuff. Don't own stuff. That is a new trend that's emerging where customers are saying, hey, again, going back to the notion of core versus chore, I have limited CapEx dollars. I don't want to be able to own it. I want to be able to leverage it. And the models, the business models that cloud offers are humongous. It's not about just per user or per device, which is the case in the traditional enterprise IT connotation. It's a lot more. I mean, I'm seeing examples of I want to be able to use an application for 30 minutes. How much do I pay? So there's like a wide range of business possibilities that need to be obviously enabled by technology. And these are all the things that we are excited about as an industry. I mean, it's not a Citrix specific comment, as an industry, and something for all of us here, entrepreneurs, to think about as well. Just going to provide a few quick basics of traditional data centers are stacks with the storage, compute, and networking integrated together. Cloud, basically, the cloud principles are going horizontal, and scaling out is as critical as scaling up, is the way to think about it. When I say scaling up, scaling out, these are not just in terms of infrastructure, but in terms of workloads that are offered that are truly necessary to deliver not just infrastructure as a service, but a platform that enables IT to be a service provider. Platform that enables IT as a service provider. So we are leveraging cloud in the private cloud context where IT administrators are consolidating infrastructure, simplifying it, And not just leveraging techniques like virtualization, but cloud orchestration, cloud management, such as the ones that are delivered by the applications like Cloud Platform that we build. And I'll go into some more specifics around that to deliver a wide range of workloads. This goes back to my first slide about service aggregation and brokering. IT administrators are becoming increasingly focused on enablement functions as opposed to enforcement functions. And in that process, their own mindsets are evolving to how can I leverage my capital on-premise versus off-premise, and looking at hybrid across the chain. So that's a way of scaling up in a different sense, even as they scale out from an application standpoint. So that's really kind of at a broad context what's happening in the industry. But just to give you a sense for when people talk about cloud era, mobile era, as if it's something that needs to be ushered for a number of years to come, it is here, it is now. That's our assertion. And you'll see the number of customers that are deploying it. But more importantly, the diversity of customers that are looking at it. You will see education institutions here, entertainment companies, financial companies, and so on and so forth. Everybody is adopting it. But again, going back to the definition itself, for different purposes. How many of us have kids here? Just a quick show of hands. Many. So I'm sure many of our kids have played Club Penguin at some point or another. Guess what? That runs on Citrix Cloud Platform today. Okay? Think about SAP doing internal development and testing. That runs on Citrix Cloud Platform. For the most part, those things are not things that you'll talk about. They're invisible. But that's really where the opportunity continues to expand. And we are one player in this ecosystem. We are one player in the ecosystem. And there's multiple other dimensions that you can overlay on those three key dimensions that I highlighted. There was a company earlier that I met which focuses exclusively on analytics and predictive analytics at that. There's a lot of tools that you can leverage and build a company around it. But I want to give you an example of one customer that's leveraging cloud for some very innovative applications here. Nothing better than hearing in the customer's own words. But there's a few key things that I want to just emphasize here. Obviously, there's faster, better, cheaper. That was highlighted. But they're unlocking innovation. And the reason why we picked this particular customer example is it's not like they're doing some basic testing or any of that stuff. They're relying on the cloud and cloud prints to run their entire business. This is a very important element that we should keep in mind as we look at business opportunity. What we are seeing is it's not just about being faster, better, cheaper. It's not just about transitioning workloads. But there is huge elements of productivity involved here, huge elements of innovation involved, and security involved. What I'm seeing is a lot of customers have dedicated workstations, but they're expanding. They're becoming more geographically diverse. So data security becomes an extremely important element for them. Understanding productivity becomes an extremely important element for them. And so leveraging cloud technologies and cloud principles, they're able to get much better productivity and also driving much more efficiency in terms of consistency and 7/24 productivity across their organizations. So this creates new opportunities for all of us. So a few guiding principles as we think about cloud, as we think about how to look at business opportunities and such is focus on all application types. Granted, you need to think through how you laser focus on specific business propositions, but all application types are important. Looking at the world in open and extensible models is critically important because nobody can predict exactly what the requirements of customers will be, what will be the drivers 3-5 years hence. And therefore, thinking about the world in open, extensible systems is extremely, extremely important. And without going into every one of them, one thing I want to highlight on security is security, again, going back to this notion of IT enforcement versus enablement, security has a connotation of control. We need to have security as a connotation of access. In the cloud world, in a distributed world, security shouldn't be about controlling and clamping down control. it should be about creating access securely. Because especially if you want to make it more untethered, more distributed, and having people be producing from anywhere and building and consuming from anywhere, there has to be security that's inherent. And so the notion has to be access and not. Now, coming into the notion of platforms themselves, thinking about everything as a service, thinking about everything in the context of APIs and SDK is important, but it seems basic. But there's one really important reason why we focus on what we call platform-style innovation, and that is for the express purpose of business relevance. Every business needs to focus on two things. How can I be relevant? How can I scale better? How can I be relevant and how can I scale better? In the context of relevancy, if you think about the world as I'm building a product, chances of us being relevant for a very long period of time are very, very slim. Why? Because more so than ever before, things are changing at an incredibly rapid pace, and you can't just say, I'm building this app. The half-life of an application continues to reduce every single day. The irrelevancy of products continues to grow every single day. So the only way to think about it is in the context of a platform and then using the platform to build. And the Lego blocks were selected for a reason. I love Transformer toys, and I'm sure people here have played with Transformer toys where you can morph them into something more concrete, more meaningful in an incredibly rapid pace. So speed of execution with a platform focus are critical drivers for staying relevant in the clouds. Now, if you think about where the opportunities are, these are the opportunities as well. But what I'm sure is striking you here is this is the enterprise IT. Well, guess what? Enterprise IT with cloud and mobile is come back into fashion. It's no longer about for you to get funded, you have to come with like some cool social app necessarily. Enterprise IT is picking up steam, and the spending in enterprise IT is growing. And across each one of these dimensions, we see investments being made, we see opportunities being created every single day. Okay, again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to specific opportunities. I'd love to talk to you about what are the specific vectors of opportunities in each one of these. But just to give you a sense for, it does not have to be something completely esoteric and non-applicable to enterprises. There's a lot of money being spent, and money is actually being spent at an accelerated pace. Now, to support this, Citrix has an accelerator program where we invite entrepreneurs to come and present their ideas. Last year alone, we funded 9 companies. And we fund companies across a broad spectrum. And we don't fund companies necessarily with the intention of acquiring them. We fund companies to unlock the potential of entrepreneurs. In fact, we've only brought one investment so far back into Citrix. Every other investment has matured on its own, gone on to be acquired by other companies, and many of them are freestanding companies that are scaling, that are thriving, and will continue to be relevant for a very long period. This is our way of staying engaged with entrepreneurs, staying in touch, and being relevant ourselves. So there's 2 people here, Michael Harris and John McIntyre, who are the program directors. But just to give you a sense for, we want to create an entrepreneurial spirit, not just within our company, but across the industry, across the ecosystem. And we continue to support the ecosystem through investments, also in partnership with organizations such as TiE. And this is something that we believe is integral to Citrix on one hand and fundamental to our strategy on the other hand. So through a variety of these factors, starting with culture, starting with empathy, continuous business cycle innovation, working with entrepreneurs, and continuing to disrupt ourselves, we have established a leadership position in what we call mobile workspaces, leveraging concepts of cloud first, supporting concepts of mobile first, but mostly focusing on how we drive experiences to drive productivity for our end users. That is really what Citrix is all about. That's where we believe there's tremendous opportunity for us to participate in the ecosystem. And hopefully through the course of the presentation, you saw some white space opportunities for yourself as well in terms of whatever your aspiration may be. It may be part of a company, it may be building a company, it may be giving back to the society, or whatever the case might be. So with that, thanks a lot for your time, and I appreciate you joining us this morning.